welcome everybody, and glad you joined in. And I'm going to speak as fast and straight to the point as possible, but I also like to tell some stories to make it a bit interesting. So, we're all here today because, firstly, I want to share my personal experience because I've been working now over 40 years full time. I know you're going, "Oh my God, you don't look that old," and been in business like about gee, what's that? What's 41 less? So 35 years I've been in business for myself. And I've been accoladed as being like this star young business person, and I was out empire building and in my 20s and built a very successful, very profitable business. And I started out with this goal that I wanted to be able to employ anybody and make them into superstars. Because one thing I learned as a young guy in my teenage years, being pretty dynamic, is I could pretty much get anyone would come and that I worked with, I could get them to produce. And I did fail a couple of times. I had people, my boss would call me and go, "Oh, we've got an apprentice. He doesn't want to show up because he says, he gets exhausted when he works with you." So, but that was my goal. And I was really successfully did it for the first few years with a smaller team. But then, when I started hitting 50 employees, it's really hard to keep that culture going. And, but we kept growing and, we hit 150 employees and my Midas touch ended, and where I was able to everything just seemed to make and flourish and money would pour in, it started to drop off. And I realized that, I had a lot of staff issues. I had the unions came in and started interfering, and business became horrible. Like, instead of looking at the monthly reports and going, "Oh my God, I'm a superstar," I look at the monthly reports and go, "Oh my God, I don't know what to do." And then I realized it's like I didn't want to be involved in hiring interviews. I didn't want to be involved with people. I started resenting my team. I felt like I was working 120 hours a week just to survive, just to basically, create cash flow. And it was horrible. So, I did the usual thing. I downsized and sold off things and got back to, a normal, manageable size with my type of culture where I could sort of expel my charisma to get people to excel. And then that was exhausting. So, I ended up selling the business in my mid 30s. And just as I was selling the business, I came across Performia, and I went to pretty much a similar seminar to what I'm presenting today. And I go, "Oh my God, I know exactly where I've gone wrong." And, very simply, it's like, as we all do, is I think at business owners, we generally have this same thought. We sort of go into business as we want to create a better culture and a better place for people to work. And then um, we put our attention more on that, and that actually creates sort of a worse environment to work in and a worse job for ourselves. So Martin Runow, who is the CEO of Performia International, did this seminar, and I just had this whole epiphany, which I really want to hope you guys have today. And I met up with him after that, and basically I was selling my business, looking for something new. So I decided, all right, I'm going to take on Performia. I want everyone to know about this. And I did an 11-day training in Taiwan and started in Performia Australia. And then I kicked off our China and Japan offices and had a ball, had a blast. And fast forward a little bit, it's like, you know, I was helping so many other businesses kicking ass with this product. It's like I wanted to go out and basically have my own crew. So, because I'd never really, apart from building Performia, I hadn't built a business again. So I built another air conditioning business, totally using Performia for all the hiring, and it was a totally change. Like, we could achieve margins that I never thought possible. We'd achieve such a fun environment. And, this is in construction where it's actually mostly adversarial and, but managed to pull off, what, I could see my clients achieving and then had the same experience. So, now I'm more of a client at Performia than working at Performia. I only get to do these seminars. So hopefully, my goal is that you come out of here today with a bit of a different viewpoint on firstly what can be achieved, but secondly also, um, you know, some tools to start, with to change your viewpoint and change a little bit where you put your attention to help, build, to go that next level up where really getting the best out of people and creating an environment where people just love to work and they love to, you know, be part of your team. So I'm just going to share my screen here. I know it's somewhere. Wait, there it is. Found it. Now, Okay, and we'll go through, here we go. So basically going to talk about building our culture, building teams and culture. So this is a bit about me and my past. It's like, you can see that, I had a really successful period, but it's like what this doesn't show is how unsuccessful things go when you just lack this experience or knowledge and tools with people. So Performia is in basically 24 countries, been around for a long time, helped a lot of people. And, we're hitting nearly 10 million candidates that have gone through the system. So we have a very deep knowledge on how to really help our clients, expand their businesses. And it's a journey. So if unfortunately, we don't have a red pill or a blue pill, but basically, it's like what the goal is to build a fun, safe, and highly effective team. And let's just define safe because we have an OH&S definition of safe. But we define safe as a group of people that not only, don't have accidents, but basically the most important thing is that anyone that's in your organization, their motivation, what brings them the best feeling is helping others. So if you have everyone in your organization that wants to help everybody else in the organization, that creates a major change. And I'm sure you've experienced where you get people in your organization and they may sometimes look like they want to help, they pretend like they want to help, but in actual fact, they're, cutting others down, they're undermining the business, you don't want to call them to even, do a favor or help out because that's just going to be useless. So we want to build this fun, safe, highly effective team. And it's possible, and perhaps it's even easy when you have the knowledge that you're going to gain some of today in screening people, being able to screen candidates in and out. And screening in is not something we normally talk about so often in the industry. It's like we normally talk about screening out, but ultimately we're trying to screen people in. And as much as we make mistakes in not screening the right people out, we also make mistakes that we never see of not screening in some people because we never know if we should have screened them in. We only know the ones that we screened in that we shouldn't have. We only want to add people to our team that have some verifiable record of adding value to groups and or the community. And so this is the key thing we're going to go over today is that it's like no matter how a person looks or feels or sounds or their experience, their knowledge, whatever it is, it's like if they can't demonstrate to you that they can actually add value to groups or they've been able to add value to groups in the past, then there's no real point in going any further because the main object of you hiring someone is they've got to come in and add value. They've got to add more value than they cost the organization. And so this is the very first step we're going to go over today when it comes to hiring and bringing people into your organization. Next, we want to add stable people that are mostly solution orientated. Obviously, they fit the position, match with your business values. And that's something that it's like most businesses are already trying to do, but generally without the tools to be able to do it. You want to add people that are more interested in adding value and helping others than their own importance. So if you're interviewing someone and they were trying to tell you how good they are, how experienced or how much knowledge or how many degrees they've got, generally these are the people that you don't want on board. You want people that are more interested in what the role's going to be, how they're going to succeed in the role. Next, you want to be tough and disciplined with your hiring. So the more disciplined you are in the hiring, the more you have the right tools to screen people in and out, the more you attract people with the right message, the more honest you are with them during the hiring process, the less disciplined you'll need to be with your team once they come on board. And this is something that, I had to learn is like, when you're hiring the right people in, I realized I didn't need to really manage them at all. It's like I was more there just as a experienced mentor, mostly from a technical perspective. Like, I started quite a technical air conditioning business and it was my technical expertise that was needed, not my management or my performance management experience. So, I don't have discipline. I don't have to discipline staff. Doesn't mean I don't get frustrated from time to time. But more I get frustrated with suppliers or our customers and my team. I love my team. The ideal team is one that each team member enjoys achieving individually to enhance the group. You can be yourself with the team, and there is nothing to hide or hidden between any of your team. So this is like, the ideal team where it's like, you don't need to it's like a little bit like running, a sports team. It's like you share the wins, you share the losses, and you share everything in between. And it's like, the more you can share at every level in the organization with as many staff as possible, but the trials and tribulations, the profit, the losses, the costs, the wins, the easier it is to run your team. There's like, you don't really need to withhold, or you shouldn't be withholding anything from any of your team. And you should be sharing as much with them so they can be on board and feel like, they are contributing. Or even better, they can contribute more when times are tough or even good. Like anything valuable, this may not be an easy road to take. It could take several years. But in saying that, it's like hopefully, if you're a person that can really adopt new things, and you should be able to walk out today and make some major changes in how you run your organization and how you decide to select people. But for some organizations, you've got to basically cycle through people, the people you've got to get out of the organization, get in, and it's like, but ultimately we're creating a culture change from the start of when we place an ad. This is where a culture change starts in an organization. So it could take a little while, but you could also see major changes today. There's possibly nothing more satisfying. And in fact, I think for me, my biggest satisfaction is when, you can build a group of people that can basically, they're winning. And when they're winning, when it's basically, profit is the score. When you get a group of people, you can go in the industry against competitors and you can, create more money left over than what it costs to run the organization. It's like it's a great feeling. And when everyone in the team is earning more than they could anywhere else, and they're enjoying the trials and tribulations as much as you enjoy and hate them, then I think you've got something really satisfying. And so basically, some of you have done this journey before that are here, and welcome to those people. Some of you are partway through, some have never seen it before, but it's like this is really the start of it. Today, I really want to get, that epiphany that I had. And so we could look at every organization that it sits on a scale, or the culture sits on a scale. And we hear all this stuff about culture, but ultimately it's like the best culture is what creates the most sense of achievement for everyone within that group and the best results for the overall group. And if a culture is, in business, a culture is not all about, being nice, being touchy-feely, being whatever it is. It's actually about like having that, sense of achievement together. And we did this, if we look at the low end of the team culture scale, like, you can have an organization where people feel under attack, where, one person can destroy an organization, have with lies and sabotage and, and for them, good decisions, for everybody else, bad decisions. It's, you can have this situation where there's a paranoia around interviewing and constantly wondering if people are going to steal or take from you, or whether they're being lazy, are they not contributing as much as they should? You want to basically get rid of hiring, based on experience. You had that feeling that business is shrinking because of failures. You had to sell off. People had to sell off and get out. It's like, and this is basically describing what was happening in my business. I got to the point where, I was losing, from making $2 million a year, losing $2 million a year. Just, really because it's, I just didn't understand how to really select people with this basic step, and then how to actually really put my attention to manage them. Hopefully you weren't in that situation. So that turned it around to basically, people were hiring actually produced, we getting, margins improved, became more confident because we had a system. And that's a big thing too. It's like one of the things you get really scared. I was always scared that I'd have people leave. And I've learned this lesson. If I'm scared that someone's going to leave, then probably the right thing is for them to leave. And, one of the things I do in my businesses now is basically I have pools, and I have my onboarding set up so that it's like, it's like I can very quickly and easily replace whoever leaves the organization. So I'm never worried about those sorts of resources. And I basically got my time back, I shifted from these people want to destroy me to I've got a team. And it's a big difference. And also too, I lost faith in humans. So at one point I thought the only way you can make money in business is you got to be a drug dealer or some sort of criminal. But, it's like anything, if you blame anything outside of yourself for the issues that are happening around you, you can't solve them. I can't solve what the government does. I can't solve what the market does. I can't solve the labor market and the people who are out there. The only thing I can do is look internally and go, these are the things, the tools and the abilities I need to sort inside myself to solve this problem. And well done to everybody that's here, because at some point you've gone, I'm not going to believe what the media or my peers are telling me. It's like, I'm going to go and solve this. And, obviously, doing this, it's in having Performia as being a customer of Performia has created a, unbelievable freedom. And it's closed out something for me, because it was horrible, basically, selling down my business at a point of really defeat rather than, going out of it in a point of winning and feeling like, I'm in the championship of the industry. So that's normal. Every business should have a team that they love working with, they're productive, and who look forward to working with each other every day. I think this is really the goal, and this is something it's like print out, put up in front of you, because if you get that, that will bring in the profits, that will bring in more money than you know what to do with to solve your problems, or, put into the bank. And it'll also allow you to start paying people whatever you really want to pay them. It's like you don't need to feel like you're competing with corporates, or, you're competing with government projects or EBAs and union and all this other stuff. It's like all that goes out the door. So, and like you said earlier, if we're defining the ideal team, it's productive, fun, and safe. And safe, like I said, is motivated by the desire to see others winning. If you've got this in every one of your individuals, and this is basically becomes your team. And it's crazy different the way things operate. So basically, we're looking to transition a team into like having a can-do attitude, where the whole team arrives motivated, driven towards a common goal, focused on achieving outcomes and winning. Just sounds like the old, it's to play football when I was younger, Aussie rules football. And, I never got paid for it, but I couldn't wait to go to a training. I couldn't wait to play games. And even for years, I'd play juniors and seniors because I just couldn't get enough of it. And when you've got that same attitude that basically people would work in your company for no pay, you've made it. When you add on the fact that you can pay them more than they get anywhere else, that's sensational. Well, so for the first challenge, let's look at a little bit of what really happens. And you'll all be familiar with this. It's like the first challenge to hiring a productive team is basically, we meet people, either by resume, video, maybe AI has filtered them through, whatever you use. But then finally you're sitting in an interview with this girl. She looks amazing. Her resume is amazing. Her experience is amazing. She's just a delight to interview. And you're going, oh my God, I was like, I've got to get this girl to work for me. And of course, you hire her, and, on another hiring, if this guy comes and sees you, the same, in fact, even better than this girl. Like, this is the guy you hire, and you're wondering, it's like, oh, it's like this person that knows more about my business and is going to achieve more than what I can achieve in it. This is the person that's going to basically give me my life back and take my business through the roof. I've hired people like this and gone home to my wife and go, oh my God, I found this amazing person. It's like, he's going to start. And, we're going to have all those, get all my time back. I can be with the family. I can do all this stuff. So it's very exciting. Then occasionally you're desperate. You hire someone. She doesn't look the best. Looks like she just came from a rave party. But, we've all been there. We're desperate. It's like, okay, when can you start? Like, tomorrow? Great. We'll take you. And then we have this guy that comes in, he sits in the interview. It's like, his resume is really not impressive. You ask him questions and he doesn't answer so well. Like you might ask, like, do you work hard? Mm, I do what I need to do. If there's an emergency, can you stay back and do overtime? I don't really like to do overtime. Oh, well, tell me a bit about yourself. I turn up to work, I do my job, I go home. But you're desperate, so you put this guy on. Then we come back 12 months later and let's look at this scenario. And, every one of these people I've seen before, and I'm sure you have. So you check over it after 12 months, you look at this girl and she's just killing it. She's amazing. She's just produced like crazy. Everyone loves her. If five more of her rocked up, you would just hire them straight away. Then we've got Mr. Champion. who we interviewed, loved so much. And then we look back and we actually realized that this guy has produced nothing at all. I had a guy like this. I hired him to be my Queensland branch manager, told me all sorts of things and reasons why things couldn't happen, made me spend more money. He gave me a lot of confidence because when you hire a guy that you're really excited about and he's not working out, you sort of blame yourself a little bit. And we call them a professional candidate. So they trick you during the interview and they also trick you sometimes the years. And they can make it feel like you're the problem, the industry's the problem. This guy I hired in Queensland, he even lied to me about how much we had to pay guys in Queensland to get them to work for us. I find out like 3 years later when he's left and pretty much destroyed my business that, we're paying them 40% above what they would have moved for. So and I can tell you story after story after story about this guy. This girl, we checked back and she only lasted 3 weeks as expected. The good thing is when you hire someone like her, you keep an eye on her. You're like, better keep an eye on her. It doesn't look so good. So, as suspected, didn't work out. And that 3 weeks gave you time to find someone to fill that role. This guy who was very dull and uninteresting, we check him and, oh my God. Firstly, I forgot he worked for us. Because that's what these guys normally are. You forget they work for you. Secondly, he's the most productive person I've ever hired in that role. And so we look at these four scenarios, which obviously, looks great, it's great, looks great is shit, looks shit is shit, looks shit is good. They're the four scenarios. You look at this and you go, oh my God, I need to learn a little bit more about people. It's just something more than resume and interview. And obviously, we just want to be hiring in this zone. We don't want to hire people that can't produce. And out of these two, it's like the guy on the bottom right, he's much more cost effective. When we ring the girl on the top left and we go, hey, we want to offer you the job, she's going, oh my God, I love you guys so much. But would you believe you're the fourth company now that's offered me a job just today? Because she fits and ticks every box, on every type of hiring system. And so you end up quite often with these type of people, like in a little bit of an auction, trying to get them to work for you. You normally stretch your budget to get them, and it's normally right to stretch your budget to get them. The guy on the bottom right, you go, hey, just ring you, let you know I got the job. Oh, fantastic. When do I start? And no one's even actually got this person in for an interview because he hasn't really, put so much on his resume. So you can start him much cheaper. It gives you a lot more room to grow his salary. But be careful because sometimes you do forget these people work for you and they can be passed over all the time because they're so dull and boring. Then you don't hear from them. They don't complain. They don't come and ask for pay rises quite often. But after a couple of years, they might just come and tell you one day they're leaving because they just feel like something's not quite right. They don't even realize that they should have a pay rise. But you know, so this is the best, right? And these are what we call our screening in candidates. These are the candidates you would normally pass over. And if you don't have a tool that can screen the wrong people out, that can also screen the right people in, then you're missing sometimes, 90% of the value of your screening in candidate screening systems. And this guy on the top right, he's not only someone that comes in and you pay him a wage and doesn't produce something. 99.9% of the time, they'll also be actually sucking value out of your business by being destructive. It's like, minimally they will distract you off what they should be achieving. So that's not being achieved. Maximally, though, they can be building mini empires in your organization. They can be harvesting off contacts. They can be, lying to you, like I said, about, how much it costs to hire people or do whatever. They can convince you to spend money to solve problems that they've created. They can convince you to spend money to solve problems they shouldn't need money to spend money on. And they're terrible. Unfortunately, I've experienced them firsthand, and I've now seen hundreds of my clients, who have experienced them firsthand and, going through the Performia training and go, oh my God, I have people like this that work for me. Better still, we've actually probably stopped thousands of these people coming into organizations, and we call that disaster aversion. You never see the value of it. But you look back and you go, oh my God, I haven't had anyone like that since I started using Performia. And so, in the workplace or in the working environment, it's like we have a certain percentage of each type of person, and we give them a name. And we do this so we can start going, well, where do we need to focus our attention? So we have this chart or which is called a Gauss curve. And basically at the bottom axis, the side axis, we have the number of people that are in the workforce. And across the bottom, we have their performance level. So, how much they produce in a certain amount of time. And at the top performance area, we have a group that we call performers. And why, hence, we have the name Performia, because we want to help our clients find performers where they're needed. And these performers make up about 20% of the workforce. This may seem a bit strange to you because you're going, oh my God, it's like I thought there was only 1 out of 1,000,000 people that could really perform. And they basically produce 80% of the result. And we don't mean that they basically do 80% of the work, but just think of this. If you've got 10 people in your organization, you've probably got 2 people that are performers. If one of those people goes away for a month or leaves the organization, quite often the group of 9 could halve, their output. If the second person is the performer, the 2 out of the 10, the second person out of the 10 leaves, then even if you replace those 2 people that they're not performers, quite often the whole group can sort of fall apart, start running around in circles, and get pretty much, can start even getting negative results. And the reason that is because we define performers basically as people that get results without the requirement of needing any sort of outside pressure, instruction, or anything else. You basically go to this person and go, hey, I need you to run the Queensland branch. And there's the address. Here's the team of people. Here's the different contacts, comm lines, how to use our system. That's what we call onboarding. We onboard the person. And then we give them we go, here's the strategy to execute, which the strategy might just be as simple as we want to grow sales by 20% and we want to grow our profit by 11%. And they go, yes, boss. And then you sort of forget about them. And then, 3 months later, you go, oh my God, I wonder what he's doing up there. And you look at the results and go, oh my God, it's like, the person is actually delivering it. And they can be anywhere in the organization or, anywhere in the scale of types of jobs. They could be a cleaner, but if you hire a cleaner who's a performer, you forget they work for you. It could be a contractor. You never have attention again that your office is not neat and tidy. You never have attention on like doors are left unlocked or that, they forgot to clean something. Performer, it should be really someone you forget about. And you only remember them because you go, oh my God, I forgot how hard it used to be to have my cleaner. Like, oh my God, it's like I don't put any attention on our Queensland office, but it just keeps growing. And this is the performer. And you realize it's like 20% of the workforce of performers is just look out the window of an aeroplane. When you take off out of a city, look at a city and go, this doesn't go together with a bunch of, incompetent people. There's a lot of competence in our society. The next category we call doers. And doers make up 60% of the workforce. And they range from being like unbelievably productive. In fact, there's no limit to how productive someone or a group of people can be. Down to basically what we call the zero productivity line, which is that red line there on the left. That zero productivity line is where basically you've got a person that's contributing about the same value as they cost the organization. And a doer is a person that's really willing, they want to succeed, they want the people around them to succeed, they want to get the job done, but they're also the type of person that sort of they need something to land on their desk or in their space, or it needs to be some sort of routine or something they know a lot about or be trained on to get the job done. And they rely on a performer somewhere in their vicinity to basically be very productive. The good thing is that, if you've got a really what we call a highly effective doer, so they're right up near the right-hand line on the performers section. It's like with the right mentoring and, trust, they can become performers. But not every doer can become performers. I'm sure you've had unbelievably productive staff members before. You put them into a role where you need to have a performer because you don't want to hire doers. You want to only hire performers when it comes to supervision or running teams and running other people. And so you move a person into a performer role who's unbelievably productive and they crash and burn. And unfortunately, then they normally leave the organization and then you lose a really productive person because not everyone wants to be or is built to be a performer. Not everyone you can mentor into that role. That's why sometimes you'll see, a 60-year-old tradesman still out there on the tools, not because they're not ambitious or something else, but it's like that's where they're found to be most productive. And unfortunately, you'll see there's still another section to go past the zero productivity line. And this next section we split into two, into troublemakers that make up about 7.5% and suppressive people. So troublemakers are people that they're still willing and they still want things to go right, but unfortunately, it's like they're like your unlucky people. They're the people that, you know, they try to make things just as they're getting things right in the workplace and they're going really on their job, something happens and it doesn't work out for them. They're the person that you absolutely, you can't rely on. They're the people that won't show up at the most important time. They're the people that often have the most sick days because they're unlucky with their health. And they're generally unlucky in life. Good people, they want to do everything right, they want to contribute, but just things don't work so well for them. And there's a whole technology around why that is, and we cover that as a second stage of our training in our personality section. But I'm sure you've bumped into these people before. The lowest end, and luckily the lowest percentage, is what we call suppressive people. And these are people that basically their intention is to see others not do so well. They succeed by sort of pushing everyone else down them so they rise to the top. And, it doesn't matter what you really do with these people or how you try and help them. It's like, the more powerful you are and the more you try to help them, the more scary you are to them because they think you're like them, just as you think other people are like you. And so they think that you just want to basically crush them. And of course, if you're powerful, then you're very scary because you could crush them very easily. And so these people, they've got to survive in the workforce. So they work on all sorts of subterfuges and misdirection, and they generally try to introvert and move blame around and try and make themselves sort of invisible to the fact that they're causing trouble. And I'll guarantee that all of you have met people like this in your life. I'll guarantee that some of you have had them in your business and maybe have them now. And there's a whole list of things to how to identify these people. And our system with our personality testing can also pick up, that we could possibly have other people that are trying to enter your organization. You don't want them in your organization. I can tell you firsthand how destructive they are from my own businesses and through many stories and that I've seen with our own clients. Quite often you can just remove this person from your organization and you can go from basically breaking even to just having best years on record, within a very short period of time. This is the person without even replacing them, things go better. And quite often they're the person that you're most scared that's going to leave the organization. So basically the whole idea with Performia is we just want to move this chart over. So no suppressive people, they're out and not going to be allowed back in. And then we want to hire around these green dots here. So we basically want to be hiring people that are effective doers and performers. You don't necessarily want a team or need a team of all performers. And then move this curve over. So, this can literally have 100 times effect on profitability and sales, just moving this over. And, it can be one of the most cost effective ways to create profit and fun and satisfaction in your organization. And you're probably asking a question that many people ask is like, if 20% of the workforce are performers, why don't I see them? Why don't they apply for jobs? And the simple fact is like when you had someone that's really productive and gets the job done in your organization, they don't leave jobs. One of the things that I find most of us believe is that people move jobs a lot in Australia. But per the Australian Bureau of Statistics, the average time an Australian stays in a job is 12 years. And even more than that, over the last 20 years, younger people are actually staying longer and longer in jobs, not shorter and shorter. The misinformation on this comes from companies like Seek and recruiters that make money out of people moving companies. So they try and drive this narrative out there to employers and employees that it's like, move jobs. They make money out of people moving jobs. And unfortunately, we pay Seek as employers all this money to advertise for us, but they actually don't work for us. They actually advertise to candidates to move jobs, to get pay rises, to question their job, to question their career, to question their purpose in life, because they make money out of people leaving. And they push that narrative that it's like, yeah, it's normal. People leave all the time. It's not like it used to be. People don't stay in jobs anymore. But over the last 20 years, older people are moving jobs more than they used to. Like older people, you can actually look at there's a whole, the Australian Bureau of Statistics have very detailed on nearly down to the postcode, gender, age on how much people move jobs. And it's interesting to look at. And especially more than interesting, it gives you confidence that it's like, you know what? I know what, why can't people should be staying 20 years in my business. This whole like it's all temporary. It's like, it's a misnomer, it's misinformation, and it's something to set aside because it makes everything in your organization temporary. Another thing with this too, the more you put focus in your organization or pay people based on result and measure people's productivity, it's like the less likely you are to have troublemakers and ineffective doers. The ultimate workplace is where no one is on hourly rate. Everybody's paid by result. And then you've got an organization where it's hard for people to hide. On the contrary, if you go to a government department or some large organizations, you can feel how lazy and slow and destructive the organization is. And that's simply because there is no attention on productivity. And so one of the very first things you can do in your organization is look at minimally, reward people with positive attention that are producing. And then if you can move that over to basically, rewarding people, with some physical prizes or even with pay and bonuses, the more you can do that based on performance, the more you'll insulate yourself from lazy or, destructive people staying in your organization. Occasionally, though, destructive people can also be very productive, and they actually use their productivity as a shield to stay in the organization. And that's something takes a bit of clever weighing up. So that's the result we're going for. So I'm not sure if you guys have seen our little cart video, but it sort of demonstrates the different types of people very well. we all can recognize those people. So let's have a look at a little bit of strategy. So basically, when we hiring, the general thing is basically we place an ad, and if you're lucky, you get a resume, or you might get a lot of resumes. And so when our resumes come in, it's like we sift through them. Some organizations use what's called resume bots, and now AI is getting heavily involved in this area. Although there are some interesting laws that are coming into place about AI and who's responsible for how it operates in the HR space. And of course, generally look at knowledge and experience, how much experience the person's had, where they've worked before, these sorts of things, and try and get them down to a point where you may have two or three people who you want to interview. So let's say there's a lot of people, come in for this, apply for this role. You've got 50 resumes. You look through, you'll find the 5 or 10 that look the best. If there's too many that look too good, then you start looking at where they're located and maybe how long their last name is and different things to decide who to interview. Then you interview them to understand more about their motivation and how compatible you'll be, and will they accept the salary and these sorts of things. And from there, basically, you might do a second interview then to get to know more about personality. And this can take quite a bit of time to work through this process. And sometimes in interviews, if you do the second interview, if you do what I used to do, it'd be like, let me just get three other colleagues. So maybe together we can make a better decision. Or maybe I can pass the blame off better to somebody else because there's more of us in the room if it doesn't work. And of course, it's really hard to get to know personality, but through the interview, you get a feel for the person, you hire them, and now you just see how they go on the job. Let's see how much value they add to our organization. And this is the traditional hiring method. And the thing that we tell our clients, and hopefully they take the advice, is basically instead of testing performance on the job, let's basically look at turning that hiring cycle around. And so instead of starting by looking at resume, let's only be interested in, has this person got some past evidence of being able to add value to groups? This is the key to hiring. And the reason we're not even that interested in resume is because we don't want to screen people out because a resume is not so interesting. Of course, you may screen people out because you're hiring for an airline pilot and you don't have 8 years to train someone that has no experience. Or the person's not in the country, or there might be some major reason. But it's like if they're basically located in an area and they have the core minimum statutory qualification requirements, it's like, I want to know about you. I don't care if you're like 97 years old and weigh 600 pounds and you're in a wheelchair. I want to know about you. And so we just want to know performance. And here's the tricky part is, firstly, not many organizations in Australia measure productivity. It's like not many employees, when you ask them, let's say you want to find out, go, well, okay, so tell me, what value did you add to your last organization? Well, I turned up every day and get it. It's like, no, I don't want to know about that. I want to know what value you added. Oh, well, everyone liked me and my customers always liked me and I got some 5-star reviews for the company, but this is not valuable. These are nice things. So we don't have a culture in Australia. Maybe in the Western world, we don't have a culture. And this is probably why we vote in crazy politicians. But it's like we don't have a culture of basically valuing people by what they actually add in value to the community. Because that's the true value of a person, not the car they drive, not the university they went to. It's like, how much value did you add, positive value to the community? And that's what we're really asking a person. And so they should be able to, a salesperson should be very easy. If you ask a salesperson first question, like what value did you add to your organization? It should be go, oh, I was always 20 to 25% over my sales target every quarter. And this would be a go, okay, I'm interested. Tell me more. But if you ask the salesperson that question, they go, oh, it's like last month the leads were pretty bad, and so it's like didn't have the best month. And okay, well, tell me about your best month you had. Oh, my best month, I made 50% of budget. And so then you're not as interested. And the good thing about this is it's like you're not spending hours to get to that question. And worst case scenario, you might be spending a year to find out the answer to that question. In sport can be quite easy because in sports, we have all sorts of measurements. We measure, the different, per se, if it's soccer, there's all different leagues in different countries, and and then within a team, it's like, each team's the same size, the field's the same size. But sometimes then when you're hiring in the same industry from your competitor, it's like there can be a lot of differences. And the best part, and the best tool you can actually have is how to be able to quickly identify how much value someone's been able to add to their groups and organizations in the past. Because when you get really good at this tool, or if you want to have the best hiring strategy, you want to be able to widen your hiring pool. You don't want to have to hire down this really narrow little crevice of going, I can only hire people with this experience, with this quality, these qualifications, because that makes it really hard to hire. Because one thing you'll see is it doesn't matter if a person doesn't necessarily have the right education or the right experience or the right qualifications. If they're productive, if they've got a really good record of adding good value to organizations and groups in the past, they could be a person that comes in and very quickly learns the new skills or adapts to your organization and becomes a superstar. And so if we can't find evidence of a person adding value in the past, it's like they're just past, they're next. I don't care what job they've had then. I don't care that Microsoft paid them $750,000 salary. I'm not interested. All I'm interested in is like, you tell me what value you've added. And it's very interesting because even a person that hasn't measured their productivity in the past or hasn't had it measured for them will actually look in and start coming up with ways of measuring. Because generally, productive people that add value to organizations and groups, they're constantly playing some sort of game with their productivity. If someone else isn't measuring it, they have some measurement system. And we have a very simple interview process that we train our clients on so that they can get these questions answered so they don't miss out on productive people that they should be hiring, but screen them out. And they don't get interested and waste time on people that are just going to be basically flaky and a waste of money in your organization. And only when we get them through this first factor of knowing that they could be productive are we interested. And then we've been interested, then we want to look further and find out more about the person. Well, and so basically what we want to know is like, how productive are they? Sorry, what's their personality? Like, they're going to fit the position. How long are they likely to stay in the company? Are they capable of teamwork? And, in some jobs, you don't really want team players so much. Some jobs are lonely. So then you want to find this out. And so you want to have some sort of personality system that basically can analyze people's, strengths and weaknesses if they, have the dark side, how productive or solution orientated, where they go to, which emotions they use as tools when they're stressed. You want to know all these things before a person starts to get a better idea they're going to fit and win in your organization. Because it's just important to have responsibility for how much they're going to win, as it is how much value they're going to add. And of course, we have some personality testing system that we train people on, turn the system around, and not only do they know how to like read and understand a person's personality, but they also get to actually understand and know how to handle emotional or misemotional, wrong emotional situations in an organization. And it's really great when you can clear out of an organization totally all the misemotion, and you only have appropriate emotions at that time that are happening. Now the person's personality fits, the person's going to stay in the company, their capability of teamwork matches what's required. Then we want to know more about their motivation. And we split motivation into two parts, which is inflow and outflow. Basically, is a person more interested in contributing and receiving something, or does a person need to be contributed to before they'll consider, contributing? This is really a delineation. And you don't really want to have inflow orientated people working for you. You want to have people that are coming in and it's like no different to playing weekend sport. The money's not the issue. It's that idea of being part of a team, the camaraderie, the contribution. That's what's more important. Of course, we all need money as well. So, I'm not saying money is not important, but it shouldn't be a key factor. It's like which car park they get, what office they have, you know, all these things are inconsequential to an outflow, productive person. And funny enough, and like I said at the start, the most important thing, oh, the most important thing, oh, sorry, we was stuck. the most important thing or least important thing we look at is knowledge, because knowledge doesn't equal education or necessary experience. You can have someone that's done 20 years of in the industry, they've got all the credentials, they went and did a PhD on, micromanaging hay in a paddock, and then you put them out to grow hay in a paddock and you've never had worse years ever. Then you start to ask them questions and you look through you you check with their references after and you go, oh my God, yeah, this guy knows everything about hay except how to grow it. And, I love watching, well, what's that show? Air Crash Investigation. It's such an interesting show. I love how they get down to the source of the problem. And, quite often, probably half of those shows are basically incompetent pilots that had all the qualifications, all the skills, all the training, but then they crash an aeroplane, kill a bunch of people, and then they look back and they go, "Oh yeah, this guy was actually incompetent the whole time, but just kept getting passed around different parts of the organization, different parts of the industry." And so knowledge and education are really a waste of time. It's like they're interesting if a person, because if they're already productive and their personality fits, they're outflow motivated. But also too, if a person has those first three factors, training them is actually quite easy. 99% of training that's out there in the industry is about skill training, how to gain more skills, technical skills usually within an industry. So they're not that hard to add on. And if you get a performer, it's literally give them, here's what you need to achieve, and they'll do your training, or they'll go to YouTube, or they'll work out how to solve it. They'll find the right people in the organization to solve things and get to that competency and capability. And so, and also the better you can onboard, the more you can train people within your organization, the more that keeps widening your ability to hire people in that don't have to fit this very narrow pathway. So, so basically the way that when you have the performance system in, with performance, you can actually, we have an online system that can start basically creating the reports to very quickly filter people, whether you want to, you're interested in them or not. Then you can create a personality evaluation to know whether they're going to fit the job, have fun in your organization, fit with your culture. And, once from there, you can basically start to screen out the people that don't basically score so well, or don't, not going to be performers, or they're not going to be very effective doers. And at this point, you can start to speak to people and interview people and save yourself a lot of time. And, we've had clients that have had 6,000 candidates go through, apply for jobs. And the whole admin to basically get to this point can be a few hours. And then it's the usual really interviewing and, knowledge and experience checking. But let me tell you, and I know this again from firsthand experience, if you've got factors 1, 2, and 3 in performance, personality, motivation, knowledge and experience aren't a big deal. And, I've brought people into very technical roles that have got really poor technical experience and they become superstars in 3 to 6 months. And they're people that should be costing, say, $150,000 to bring in, that you bring in for 75, 80,000 and because they're sort of at the bottom of the industry, but with the right one, 2, and 3 factors, that basically come in and kick ass. And then the only problem I got is that like they become so good is 2 years later, people are offering them 200 grand a year. But fortunately, it's like, we've got the capacity to bring them up to that sort of pay as they get their knowledge and experience quickly and demonstratively, valuable for the organization. So I think that's the fastest I've ever spoken in 1 hour. So, and then you hire them and they come in. So basically here we are, next steps. And we didn't go over advertising, but it's like before you start advertising, clearly define the type of person you want. So it's like, and we go through this obviously a lot in our training. Be careful when you actually advertise and you're selling the job to a person. Don't sell it to them on glamour and benefits. Sell it to them on what's going to be tough about the role, what's tough in your organization, what you don't like in your organization. Sell it to them on the dirty washing. Don't sell it to them on the clean washing. And in actual fact, you can even embellish how bad your organization is or how tough the job will be. It's like, you want to have this goal at the end of 12 months. You want the person to be basically sitting in their 12-month review going, oh my God, Gareth, you said the job was going to be so hard, but it actually was never that hard. And that's how it should be. It's like the worst thing you do in your organization is firstly sell people to come into your organization on a high pay and a beautiful company and you have a great coffee machine, because this attracts these inflow type people that are just looking for benefits and don't care about results. But secondly, it's like if a person gets through the tough, embellished sell, then there's a good chance that it's like they're not going to be running to you every few weeks going, oh, this I'm having this trouble and that trouble, and it's tougher than you said, and I think I need more money to do this job because that's not going to get it. So very important. Concentrate on the most important factor when building a team, which is productivity. Acknowledge people that are producing, paying people more that are producing, reward people that are producing. Only interview people past the first question once you know if they can contribute value to groups and organizations. That is number one culture building tool. If you want to have the championship business in your industry where no one can come close to your margins, no one can come close to the quality, no one can come close to your safety records, that's the number one thing. It's 99.9% of focus on productivity, people that produce, candidates that can show you a productive history. And, if you're ready to take it further, then just, definitely come to one of our trainings or sign up on what we call the journey. Like I said earlier, it's not easy, It's like if anything was easy, everyone would be doing it. And it just takes a bit of discipline. It takes a bit of, sometimes turning your whole idea of how things work 180 degrees and then getting in there, rolling your sleeves up and making sure that the tools that you learn in Performia are in your organization and working. The good news is we train and mentor people the whole way through. We're not consultants, so that basically you become the guru in your organization of building a culture. And as your organization grows, you'll grow your HR team around how this works as well. So you're not into this, dare I say, this woke and flaky way that, businesses in our society is going. So it's not for the faint-hearted. And hopefully you've enjoyed today. I've gone a little bit over time, so I apologize for that. If you've got any questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat, and Nagar will come back to you, or I can even set up a meeting with you. So thanks for today, and appreciate the time and look forward to meeting some new people. And I see some familiar faces there as well. So hi to those guys, especially Steve. You're very much a blast from the past. I think you came to our training, I think it was 2006 or 2007. So thanks for hanging around for 20 odd years.
You're very welcome, Gareth. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. And you've still been one of my best clients. So thank you.
Yeah, as consultants, we still recommend Performia to everybody, because what I know is it works. And just as a comment, I can guarantee to everybody 3 decisions that I took personally to help others, particularly franchisees, thinking that I could change these people, cost me more than $1 million. So I use that as a story all the time because it's true.
Yeah. No, it is. It's a great story. So thanks, Steve. It was great working with you, and Linda. You guys are a dynamic duo.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. Yeah, that's what it's all about. Yeah.
All right. So thanks, everybody, and look forward to seeing you on the next presentation, which should be our performance training.